The gavel had struck only momentarily when the whole courtroom plunged into an almost unnatural quiet. The noise reverberated against the wood walls like a clap of thunder, leaving behind only silence. Every inhale was heavy, as if the air itself had become heavy with expectation. Every moment lingered like eternity, pulling time into slow motion. The benches groaned with onlookers leaning forward, not wanting to miss even the slightest movement. The reporters, pens poised above notepads, sat immobile. Cameras, though barred from directly recording, had their lenses trained through sketches and reports, prepared to capture the moment in words that would shake the world. And amidst all that quiet, surrounded by the tension of hundreds of gazes, Janelle Brown stood up. For a moment, it was barely noticeable. A mere gesture, but its weight was inescapable. She didn't stand up like a woman uncertain. She didn't stand up like a person expecting pity. She stood up like a storm raging, like thunder about to shatter the sky. Her palms shook with a subtle tremble as they wrapped around a bulging folder, the edges of the documents within creased from nights of holding them too tightly. But her face was a different story altogether. Stone hard. No tears, no smiles, no fissures to show the tempest of fear and fury raging inside her. It was a mask of strength, etched out of years of deception, sacrifice, and silence. Christine Brown and Meri Brown both leaned forward in their chairs, all but holding their breath. They recognized the danger of this moment. They recognized that Janelle was about to step across a line that could never be unraveled. And in the other part of the room, Kody Brown's jaw clenched. His fists clenched on the high-gloss oak of the defense table. His glare narrowed to a cut through the glass quality. He knew what was about to happen. He had spent a lifetime keeping his secrets hidden beneath charm, manipulation, and control. But now, those secrets were going to be torn into the light, and he could do nothing to prevent it. The atmosphere between Janelle and Kody was charged, nearly violent in its ferocity. It was no longer a courtroom anymore. It was a war zone, and Janelle? She was ready to shoot the first cannonball. "Your Honor?" Janelle started off, her voice soft but capable of slicing through the hush like a knife. "What I am going to expose will change all that you believe you know about Kody Brown." The audience responded in unison. Gasps traveled across the room like the wave against the rocks. Some reporters dropped their pens in shock, grabbing for them. Some wrote frantically, their hands trembling. One woman in the back covered her mouth with both hands, eyes bulging in shock, as if she had just seen a slow-motion car accident. Christine's face went white. Her heart was racing inside her chest so badly, she was sure others around her could hear it. She was holding the edge of the bench so hard her knuckles went white. She had been waiting for this, fearing it and hoping for it all at once. Meri, however, closed her eyes and muttered a silent prayer to herself. She well knew the power of Janelle's words. She knew that once they were spoken, there would be no forgiveness, no rewind. The judge craned forward, face studiously impassive but eyes bright with interest. Even he could see that what was happening before him was not regular testimony. This was not simply about money or betrayal. This was about destroying the carefully built aura of a family empire that countless millions of viewers had been following for years. Kody's response was the most revealing. His mouth curled into a sneer that couldn't conceal the anger in his eyes. He slowly shook his head, as if ridiculing Janelle's audacity. But under that veneer of arrogance, sweat trickled into beads at his temples. His foot tapped out an impatient rhythm on the floor, a nervous beat he couldn't stop. For the first time in years, he was no longer master of the story, and Janelle knew it. She breathed deeply, flexing her shaking hands into stillness, her gaze fixed on the judge, never shifting towards Kody, never wavering from the one man in the room who could choose truth. For an instant, the silence grew even heavier, weighing down every spirit in the room like a burden too burdensome to bear. Each audience member was stuck in the same question: what might she have to say? Whispering erupted in the back of the room. A man murmured, "Is it the money?" A woman replied, "No, it must be something more. She wouldn't look like that if it was only money." The bailiff quieted them with a stern glare. Janelle's hands tightened over the folder. She remembered her children, their pain, their tears, the nights they cried and asked her why their father did not love them the same way. She remembered the sacrifices she made, the dreams she had given up, the trust she had offered again and again only to have it shattered. Her chest constricted in anger and fear. Anger over what she had suffered. Fear of what would happen once the truth was finally out. But then came another feeling forcing its way up. Determination. "Mrs. Brown," the judge at last uttered, his words breaking the stifling hush. "You may proceed." Janelle nodded once. She moved forward, her heels clicking against the courtroom floor. Each sound bounced back like a drumbeat of war. Step by step she moved towards the witness stand. The folder against her chest grew heavier with every step as though the secrets within were struggling to remain concealed. Christine leaned forward even more, her breath stuck in her throat. She could hardly whisper, "She's going to actually do it." Meri, eyes still shut, shook her head slowly. "This is it. There's no going back now." Kody sat rigid, his muscles straining, his gaze fixed on Janelle like a predator eyeing prey. But down deep, beneath the anger was a spark of something else. Fear. He knew that Janelle could undo it all. And when she arrived at the witness stand, put her hand on the Bible, and was about to speak, the room was so tense it was about to snap. When Janelle finally opened the folder, the rustling of paper was louder than thunder in the complete silence. She gazed up, her eyes blazing, not with rage but with truth. "This," she breathed, voice trembling but intact, "is the evidence he never wished the world could see." The room gasped once more. And then in an instant, war was started. For much of her life within the Brown household, Janelle had been the quiet one, the one who never yelled, never ratcheted up the fights, never fought for attention when drama hung on the air. She was the peacekeeper, the mediator, the one who felt that harmony came before victory. But what no one knew, what she kept hidden behind that consistent, unchanging face, was the burden she bore in silence. The quiet sacrifices. While the cameras on sister wives recorded smiles, meals, and group outings, what they did not record was how frequently Janelle was left by herself. The nights when Kody never arrived at her residence. The mornings when her kids asked, "Why does Dad spend more time with Robyn's family than with us?" The countless times she had to explain to bill collectors why payments were late, all while Kody was pouring money into another dream property that would never materialize. For years she rationalized it. It was okay, she kept telling herself. This is polygamy, she would think. This is the cost of being part of something greater than ourselves. But deep within, that reasoning began to lose coherence. The first cracks it began with small things that hinted at larger deceptions. Tributes from visits Janelle was unaware of. Withdrawing funds from joint accounts that no one could account for. Gossip that Kody had been signing papers without sharing with the other wives. She suppressed the thoughts at first. She did not wish to be suspicious. She did not wish to think that her husband could cheat not just her, but all the wives and children who believed him. Then there was the evening that everything changed. The locked drawer. It was evening, the house still with only the sound of the clock ticking. Janelle had stepped into the family office to retrieve a missing document for her tax submission. She rummaged through the desk drawers, opening one after another, when her fingers passed over something unusual. An old, locked drawer that she had never seen before. Her heart skipped a beat. Why would there be a locked drawer in a desk, meant to contain nothing but family records? For a few minutes, she deliberated. She wasn't the type to pry. She wasn't the type to trespass. But something deep within prodded her. "Open it, you need to know." She spotted the little key taped to the bottom of the desk, seemingly challenging her to notice. Her fingers trembled as she inserted the key into the lock. The drawer groaned open, and her reality skewed. The documents. There were piles of papers, bank statements, deeds to property, contracts. Her mind couldn't initially wrap itself around what it was seeing. She turned the pages, page by page, her confusion morphing into horror. Tens of thousands of dollars had been moved. Thousands and thousands into accounts Janelle didn't even know. Houses had been bought in names she'd never heard. And the worst part, of course, was that the signatures at the bottom of each page were unmistakable. Kody's. Her stomach fell. It wasn't an error. It wasn't poor accounting. This was intentional. Kody had been moving money, concealing assets, obtaining properties. And it wasn't for the family. All of it, none of it. The letter, but the worst revelation wasn't the money. Hidden beneath the pile of papers was one envelope. Janelle hardly opened it. Something about it seemed too intimate, too risky. But her fear and curiosity gave her no option. She pulled out the paper, opening it carefully. The words were written in Kody's handwriting, jagged and hasty, as if penned in haste. When the time arrives, the letter stated, I will break away from the others. Robyn and I will be the last two left. The others will receive nothing. Janelle stopped in her tracks. The letter fell out of her hands, drifting onto the floor. Her ears rang with the thumping of her heart. Her eyes went hazy. She picked up the paper again, hoping she had read it wrong. But no, the words stood before her, as plain as day. Her husband, the man she trusted, the father of her children, he had already made up his mind to leave them. The nights that followed, Janelle didn't sleep for days. Following that revelation, she spent nights lying awake, looking at the ceiling, the words echoing in her mind like a nagging shadow. The rest will get nothing. She gazed at her children, children who had already suffered so much, who had already posed the question of why their father was cold to them, and she questioned how she could shield them from a reality so harsh. At gatherings with their family, she observed Kody laugh with Robyn, his hand on hers, his vows of fidelity so sincere that anyone else would have trusted him. But Janelle was wiser now. She understood that those vows were hollow, a cover for deception, and every time she caught him smiling, her gut nodded more. The breaking point. She didn't say anything to anyone for weeks. Not Christine, not Meri, not even her older kids. She kept the truth to herself, hoping, pleading, that perhaps there was another reason. But the proof was irrefutable. And then there was the day that left her no choice. A bank notice in the mail. A warning of an account perilously overdrawn. Janelle had been pinching pennies, budgeting every cent. She recognized this was not her error. She approached Kody calmly, behind doors closed. Kody, she demanded, her voice shaking, where is the money disappearing to? He dismissed her. You wouldn't comprehend. Do not concern yourself. But when she pressed further, his expression hardened. Mind your own business, Janelle. You don't have to know everything. That was when something within her broke. She saw that if she remained quiet any further, she would not only be betraying herself, but her children, Christine's kids, Meri's children. The dynasty Kody had created was infested with decay from the inside, and she alone had the evidence. The decision to speak that evening. Janelle stuffed the papers back into the folder. She clutched it to her chest, as if she were clutching a weapon, because that's what it was. She caught a glimpse of herself in the mirror, and spoke softly. If he desires a war, then he shall have one. But this time, I won't be quiet. The choice was horrifying. Kody would resist. Robyn would weep and protect him. The whole world could turn on her. But the reality was larger than her fear. And when the court date came, Janelle entered that courtroom, with the folder in her hands. Her secret was no longer a secret. It was a sword, and she was prepared to wield it. The voice of the judge pierced through the silence, like a razor. Mrs. Brown, stand up. Janelle breathed slowly, holding the folder so hard her knuckles turned white. She stood up, her footsteps ringing down the shining floor, each one slower than the previous one. Passing by Kody, she could feel his burning gaze on her, challenging her to glance over at him. She didn't. Instead, she continued to keep her eyes glued to the judge's bench. Once she reached the witness stand, the bailiff extended the Bible. Do you promise to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Her voice was gentle, but it did not falter. I do. She sat, the folder on her lap, its weight bearing down upon her like a boulder. The first question. The lawyer walked slowly, allowing her to get accustomed. His tone was steady, calm. Mrs. Brown, why are you here today? For what seemed like a long time, she didn't respond. The quiet was oppressive. Everyone in the room shifted forward, as if the very air insisted upon her answer. At last, Janelle raised her chin. Her tone was low, but her words rolled like thunder. I'm here because the man I trusted, the man who promised to guard his family, betrayed all of us. I'm here because my children, Christine's children, Meri's children, our whole family were left behind while he constructed a new kingdom for another woman. The audience gasped. Christine's tears welled up in her eyes. Meri folded her hands together, softly mouthing, "Oh God," to herself. And Kody pounded his fist on the table. "Lies," he roared. "She's twisting everything." The judge banged the gavel. "Order in the court. Mr. Brown. One more outburst, and you'll be held in contempt." The room stilled, but the tension only grew heavier. Kody's glare. As the attorney went on, Janelle could feel Kody's glare boring into her. His body slouched forward menacingly. His hands clasped so tightly on the table. His knuckles grew red. His chest fell and rose with short, angry breaths. She recognized that look. She had seen it behind closed doors. The look he employed when he wanted to shut her up without speech. But today she wasn't going to cower. "The pressure mounts, Mrs. Brown." The attorney prodded. "Tell us what you found in the records of your family." Janelle hesitated. Her hands shook slightly as she played with the folder on her lap. She could feel the pounding of her heart against her throat. The room seemed to incline in toward her, every face awaiting. Christine whispered, "Come on, Janelle. You can do this." Meri squeezed her eyes shut and prayed silently for courage. Even Robyn, who would usually stand up for Kody in tears and words, sat in shock. Her lips formed words silently, saying something she alone could hear. Janelle then spoke. "Yes, I discovered bank statements. I discovered deeds. And I discovered a letter. A letter that confirms that this betrayal was not a mistake. It was done deliberately." The audience gasped once more. Kody strikes back. The lawyer had hardly time to answer before Kody jumped to his feet. "These are absurd," he bellowed. "She's jealous. She's resentful because I paid her too little attention. This is about her pride, not the truth." The judge banged the gavel. "Sit down, Mr. Brown. You will have your turn to answer." Kody glared at the judge, but slowly collapsed back into his chair. His face flushed, his jaw working. His lawyer leaned in close, muttering wildly in his ear. But his eyes never wavered from Janelle. The fear in the room. The lawyer turned again to Janelle. "Mrs. Brown, are you afraid of Mr. Brown's reaction to your testimony today?" Janelle's throat constricted. She caught a quick glance at Kody, his glare so fine it could slice her in two. But she didn't blink. "Yes," she said, her voice firm. "I'm afraid. But fear is precisely the reason he's been able to hide the truth for so long. And I won't be quiet anymore." The courtroom fell silent. Even the judge stopped, taken aback by the gravity of her words. The folder opens. The attorney nodded. "Then Mrs. Brown, I ask you now, are you ready to introduce the evidence you've brought before this court?" The folder on Janelle's lap seemed to grow heavier. Her fingers trembled as she touched the edge. She thought of her children again, of the nights she cried in silence, of the promises Kody had broken one by one. She closed her eyes for a moment, inhaled deeply and then opened them. "Yes," she whispered. "I'm ready." She slowly opened the folder. The rush of paper against paper sounded like thunder in the electricity-charged silence. Christine's breath caught. Meri's lips trembled. Robyn shook her head, mouthing, "No, no, no." Even Kody's smirk faltered for the briefest second. Janelle lifted the first page and held it up. "These are the bank statements. Thousands of dollars missing from family accounts. All of it transferred into accounts none of us knew existed." The lawyer took the page, holding it up for the judge. She pulled out another. "These are deeds to property. Land bought in clandestine names. Land his wives, his children, never knew about." The crowd gasped harder, the sound rising like thunder beyond the walls of the courtroom. And then, Janelle hesitated over the last envelope. The letter hangs in the air. Her throat tightened. Her heart raced. She knew what was inside this envelope. She had read it again and again, each time breaking a little more. The lawyer noticed her hesitation. "Mrs. Brown," he said gently, "you don't have to continue if you're not ready." Janelle shook her head firmly. Her eyes burned with fire. "No, this is what needs to be seen. This is what he's been hiding." She opened the envelope slowly, her hands shaking. She felt the intensity of Kody's gaze. Hot, angry, hopeless. The room fell silent once more. Christine breathed softly. "Oh my God." Meri had her hand over her mouth. Robyn blanched, as if the earth beneath her feet had vanished. And then Janelle set the envelope on the lawyer's desk. Her voice broke, but her words were distinguishable. This is the letter. The evidence that he intended to leave us all. The atmosphere in the courtroom was oppressive. The air was too heavy to inhale. Kody leaned forward, his words a poisonous hiss. You think you've won, Janelle? Do you think anyone will listen to you? The judge's gavel came down again. Order, order. But it was too late to stem the tidal wave about to overwhelm Kody Brown. Janelle had finally opened the door. And now there was no going back. The envelope rested on the lawyer's desk, like a bomb waiting to explode. Every pair of eyes in the courtroom was on it. The air became so thick it seemed as if no one was brave enough to take a breath. Christine's hands trembled as she held her purse to her body. Meri had her hands pressed tight together, so that her knuckles turned white. Robyn's lips quivered, her body locked in shock. And Kody resembled a trapped animal. His eyes flashed, his jaw tensed, his body tensing, as if at any second he might spring from his chair. The attorney retrieved the envelope slowly, gingerly, as if even to touch it could release disaster. He drew out a folded piece of paper, its corners folded, its ink now worn by time. The courtroom was still in a manner that would cause every shuffle, every intake of breath, every pulse to resound like thunder. Your Honor, the attorney stated, holding up the page. This is a letter that was written by Mr. Kody Brown himself in his own handwriting. The contents will be self-explanatory. The reading begins. The judge sat forward, his face serious. Go on. The attorney unfolded the letter and cleared his throat. His voice, though level, bore the import of something tragic. When the time comes, he read slowly, I will cut ties with the others. Robyn and I will keep everything. The rest will get nothing. The words cut through the courtroom like knives. Gasps burst from the gallery. Christine slapped a hand over her mouth, her eyes filling with tears. Meri whispered a shaking, no, no, as if saying it out loud might make it not be so. Robyn's face went white. She shook her head, tears streaming down her cheeks. He didn't mean that. He couldn't have meant that. She gasped, her voice cracking, and Kody, his face flushed pale, then red, then contorted with sheer rage. He leapt to his feet, slamming his fist on the table. That letter is a lie, he thundered. The court explodes in chaos. The crowd exploded in whispers and gasps. Journalists wrote quickly, cameras beeped, and voices swelled in a tide of shock and disbelief. The judge pounded his gavel again and again. Order, order in this courtroom. But the tumult would not cease. The facts were out now, and there was no pushing them back into the darkness. Janelle rigidly sat in the witness stand, her gaze fixed on Kody. For years, she had watched him spin words, rewrite history, twist truths. But this time he had caught himself in his own trap. Kody's desperate denial. Kody raised an accusing finger against Janelle, his voice cracking with anger. She fabricated it. She made it up. She's just jealous, always trying to bring me down, because I picked Robyn over her. His attorney pulled on his arm, attempting to calm him down, but Kody pushed him away roughly. She's lying, I swear. None of you have any idea of the pressure I've been under, the sacrifices I've made for this family. But nobody was listening to him anymore. The letter lay before them in plain view. His words no longer had the power to wipe out what was written in black ink. The judge's stern warning. The judge's voice boomed. Mr. Brown, stop it, sit down or face contempt of court. Kody shot the judge a filthy look, his chest rising and falling with rage. Grudgingly, with conscious effort, he sank back into his chair, fists still tightly clenched. The attorney raised the letter higher. Your Honor, the handwriting has been cross-checked by 2 separate analysts. There is no doubt, this letter is the property of Mr. Brown. The judge nodded solemnly. The court accepts the validity of this document. Kody pounded his fists on the table, once again cursing in a low tone. The emotional fallout. Christine snapped. Tears poured down her cheeks as she whispered, all those years, all those sacrifices, and he was planning this behind our backs. Meri took Christine's hand. Her face was white, but her grip was tight. We knew he was selfish, Meri whispered,
but I never thought he'd destroy us like this. Robyn, shaking, turned to Kody. Tell me this isn't true. Tell me you didn't mean it. But Kody didn't respond to her. He didn't even glance at her. His gaze was fixed on Janelle, blazing with so much hatred that it rung through the air. Janelle, stand. Janelle's voice ultimately ended the silence. She stood up, her hands shaking but her words distinct. This is the man we trusted. The man who said he was our protector, our leader, our husband. But in private he was preparing to steal everything and leave us with nothing. She addressed the judge, then the courtroom. I remained quiet for far too long. I told myself it wasn't my responsibility to speak. But this is evidence that silence only lends credibility to betrayal. And I will no longer let him shut me up. The crowd burst into applause before the gavel came down once more. Order! Order, or I'll clear the courtroom. Kody's last outburst. Kody couldn't endure it any longer. He leapt to his feet again, his face blazing with anger, veins standing out in his neck. You're strong, Janelle. You can resist me? You're nothing without me. None of you would make it without me. His words rang out, raw and venomous. For a moment, even the gavel couldn't keep him quiet. But then Christine rose. Her voice trembled, but it was heard over the din. You're mistaken, Kody. We're better off without you. We always were. The courtroom gasped. Meri nodded slowly, tears welling in her eyes. Even Robyn, crying, couldn't defend him. Kody finally looked around and saw not supporters, not friends, but faces of disappointment, anger and determination. The silence after the storm. At last, the judge thumped the gavel a final time, his voice thundering. Mr. Brown, sit down. This court will not stand for another outburst. Kody fell back into his chair, his chest laboring, his face contorted with fury and desperation. The attorney folded the letter up, with care, returning it to the envelope. Your Honor, he stated resolutely, this letter says it all. Mr. Brown did this with intent to defraud and leave his family in the lurch. There can be no doubt of his treachery. The judge's eyes were black, his face impassive, but already the letter had spoken louder than any gavel. The scene closes. Janelle sat back in her seat, her body trembling, tears welling up in her eyes, but her heart a weight lighter than it had been in years. She had done it. She had torn off the mask and revealed to the world who Kody really was. But as she glanced across the courtroom, she noticed Kody's eyes fixed on her with a threat. A silent, poisonous threat. This isn't over. His stare appeared to say. And in her chest, Janelle knew the truth. Revealing the letter was only the start. The true fight was yet to unfold. The courtroom was choking on its silence. Each and every individual within, family members, journalists, strangers, remained motionless, as if they had just seen the world split apart. The letter had done its work. Janelle's words had hit like a bolt of lightning. Kody's rants had cemented the tempest. Now all that remained was the word of the judge. The gavel hit once. This court has heard enough. The judge stated, his deep voice commanding. We will render a decision. The judge considers the evidence. The judge leaned forward, placing his hands on the bench. His gaze shifted from Janelle to Kody, and then to the shaking wives in the gallery. For years, he started hesitantly. This family portrayed themselves as a cohesive unit. But behind the facade, lies and deceptions brewed. Today the facts have been revealed. He took up the letter, cradling it gingerly, as if it bore the world's burden. Needless to say, this document is not ambiguous. The handwriting has been authenticated. The intent is obvious. Mr. Kody Brown, you schemed to leave your family and take over property for yourself and a single wife only. This is a violation not only of trust, but of statutory and ethical responsibilities. Gasps charged the air. Meri hid her face in her hands. Christine's tears flowed openly. Robyn wept wildly, shaking her head as if hoping the words would go away. And Kody, his jaw was locked, his fists clenched, his body tense as a spring ready to fire. The ruling. The judge's gavel came down. This court finds in favor of Mrs. Janelle Brown. The evidence adduced is enough to reveal deceit, mismanagement, and intent to defraud. Mr. Brown, your credibility is destroyed. Your authority over family financial accounts and property is hereby withdrawn subject to further investigation. The crowd broke out. Reporters scrambled for the doors to transmit breaking news. Voices resounded in an outburst of shock, gratification, and incredulity. Christine covered her mouth with a hand, whispering, "We won. We actually won." Meri exhaled deeply. Her face finally cracked into a look of relief. For the first time in years, even Robyn, though shattered, appeared to acknowledge something beyond question. The man she was defending was not the same man she believed she knew. The family reactions. Christine stood, sobbing. She turned to Janelle, her voice cracking. "You did it. You were strong enough for all of us. You saved us." Meri leaned over, her hand squeezing Janelle's. "We would have never had the courage without you." But Janelle never smiled. She never wept. She just nodded, staring at Kody. Because she knew, this wasn't the end. Kody's fury. Kody leapt to his feet. His chair shrieked on the floor, metal ripping. His face had flooded red with rage, his chest laboring as he swept his arm across the room, pointing.
You think you've won? He bellowed, his voice booming like thunder. You think this court makes a difference? You've shamed me in front of the world, but I will not be destroyed by you. The judge thumped the gavel. Mr. Brown, that's enough. But Kody did not stop. His voice increased, deepening into a dark, angry tone. You're all traitors. Christine, Meri, Janelle, you've been against me since the beginning. And you? He finally spoke to Robyn. His voice lowered, as cold as a knife edge. Even you couldn't keep me safe. Robyn gasped, shaking her head wildly. Kody, no, don't say that. But he was past reason. His eyes glowed with loathing as he leaned in, his voice cold and poisonous. This isn't over. Not by a long way. You don't know what I still have. You don't know what I can do. The room grew chill. The threat hung in the air like smoke after fire. The judge's final warning, Mr. Brown. The judge thundered. One more word and you will be held in contempt and removed by force. But Kody's glare never wavered from Janelle. He sat down slowly, his smirk back, as if he was privy to a secret no one else was. The judge, with a deep sigh, rapped the gavel once more. This hearing is adjourned. The aftermath. The courtroom broke into chaos once more. Reporters pushed forward, cameras popping, microphones thrust out. Christine and Meri attempted to shield themselves as questions were yelled. Christine, do you feel vindicated? Meri, what do you think about the decision? Janelle, do you fear retaliation? Security prodded folks back, calling for order. Through it all, Janelle remained unflappable, her expression impassive. Inside, her heart was racing. Her hands trembled, but on the outside, she appeared as a fortress that could not be breached. The silent exchange as the courtroom emptied, Janelle shifted her gaze and locked eyes with Kody's for one final time. No words were exchanged. None were necessary. His stare promised revenge. Her gaze promised resilience. It was a battle of wills, silent but powerful. A promise that this war had only just begun. The family's exit. Christine slipped her arm around Janelle. Let's go. Don't give him another second of your strength. Meri nodded in agreement, though her eyes still brimmed with tears. You've carried us through the fire. Now let's walk out together. Even Robyn, mascara streaking her face from tears, stood uncertainly. She was uncertain of Kody for the first time. Her voice shook. I don't know what to believe anymore. The wives withdrew together. A respectful show of solidarity Kody was now powerless to destroy. Kody alone. Kody sat alone, stiff at the table. His attorney whispered wildly in his ear, but Kody did not respond. His gaze remained fixed on the doors Janelle had just exited. His fists tightened and tightened, his face chiseled into an outline of fury and fixation. At last, he muttered to himself, almost inaudibly, they think they've beaten me. But this is just the beginning. The cliffhanger for the audience. Outside of the courthouse, cameras snapped as Janelle gave the press a quick word. Her voice was even, her tone firm, I didn't come here for revenge. I came here for truth. And the truth will always win. But as the cameras flashed and the crowd murmured, the specter of Kody's threat hung over the scene. Everyone sensed it. This wasn't closure. This was a spark, and the firestorm had just begun. Final narration for viewers. And so Janelle Brown emerged from the courthouse triumphant. Her bravery rewrites the family's history once and for all. But victory came at a cost. Kody Brown's anger had not abated. It had just turned meaner, more sinister, more volatile. The question now is not if Janelle betrayed him. It's if she and the rest of the clan are ready to face the hurricane he's about to let loose. Because in the battle of lies and deceit, this verdict was but the first skirmish.